So my name is Emily. I'm a second year student here at the U, and I work with student union and activities in the student events and entertainment area. So typically I plan events like at the Whole Music Club in the basement of the union, but obviously right now with COVID, we are not holding any shows, which is a bummer, but we're getting to do other fun stuff like this. So this is one of our 4 music industry job series events we've had this semester, and we've had people like middle agents or booking agents and tour managers on so far. And we're going to be continuing on to do these next semester. So if you have any interest in working in the music industry, it's definitely good to check out. But yeah, that's kind of why we're having this event. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina to introduce herself.
Hi guys, I'm Christina. I am a publicist at Capitol Music Group, which is a company that has a few labels underneath it. So it has Capitol Records, Virgin Records, Harvest Records, Motown, Blue Note. So it's kind of like if Universal Music Group is an umbrella, Capitol Music Group is underneath that, and then we have all the labels underneath. So as a publicist, I get to work on projects underneath all of those labels. So my roster spans all different genres, different stages of development. I've been at Capitol for almost 6 years now. And I studied music industry in college, so I always knew I wanted to be in music, which it seems like you guys are really interested in the industry as well. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys today.
Yeah, super cool. So yeah, just a little bit about your academic experience, like where you went to school, what you majored in, and then any like internship experiences or anything like that would be super cool to hear about as well.
Sure. So my path was, I studied music industry. My major was specifically music industry at SUNY Oneonta, which is State University of New York at Oneonta. I chose that school specifically because they had a music industry program, and my courses were part business, part music theory and like performance, but we had a lot of really specific like record label courses, legal, like copyright, licensing, that kind of thing. But the most important thing is that we had to have an internship credit to graduate. So in 2014, I interned at Epic Records in New York City in the publicity department. And I wasn't seeking publicity necessarily. That was just the position that was open to me when I applied. So I got that internship, and that kind of got my foot in the door. I ended up getting hired as the assistant in that department a couple months after my internship ended, which was super lucky timing, honestly. The assistant had just quit, and I was fresh in their brains because I had just left. So I was the assistant at Epic, and then from there moved to Capitol Records in New York City as the publicity coordinator. And as the coordinator at Capitol, I basically supported 3 publicists who were really busy and, you know, juggling a bunch of things all the time, which gave me a lot of responsibility. Some things that were probably above my pay grade, but it really like allowed me to get like a really hands-on experience of the music industry, because I was covering things for them and, you know, out on my own on press days for them. And after about a year, I got moved out here to LA, staying with Capitol. And since I've been here for like 5 years now, I've had my own roster, which, like I said, is kind of all over the place for genres and different stages of development. So that's really fun. So yeah, that's kind of the lucky path I've taken. Everything timing-wise has really worked out lucky for me. Like the assistant leaving Epic right when my internship was finished. My boss at Epic actually brought me to Capitol with her. So it's been a series of very fortunate events, but it's been a lot of hard work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, cool. Definitely something I've seen through like everyone we've talked to is like just the right place at the right time, and it's so interesting to learn about that. And then I guess with that, like before you started working in music, so even before like Epic, did you have any like other job experiences, even like just in high school or college, like that you think helped you along the way?
Yeah, I worked at a movie theater all through high school. So I think anybody who's worked in any position where you're in retail or you do any kind of customer service, that prepares you for life in so many ways, and dealing with people in so many ways, and dealing with nasty people in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that kind of established like a work ethic in me.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I think also I was just a huge music fan, and even as a kid used to pay attention to what labels were doing, or an artist that I really liked, paying attention to things that they were doing around an album release and being like, oh, they have a new song coming out and they're on TV next week. That makes sense. Like, you know, just kind of like teaching myself as much as I could just by watching and observing.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess like pre-pandemic, what did your job at Capitol look like the day to day or even like the week to week? What happened?
Yeah. Well, back in the day, before I was in this apartment all the time, I'd say like 75% of the job is at my computer in the office all day, pitching and pitching and pitching, and you know, begging people to listen to my baby bands, or you know, strategizing with other departments on upcoming campaigns and stuff like that. And then 25% is the fun and exciting stuff, which is when we're out on press days with artists, at TV bookings, photo shoots, or on a red carpet, or, you know, kind of the flashier side of PR that I think people think is the whole job. It's really like a quarter of the job, and a lot of it is just me at my desk, like pitching and pitching and pitching. But that's kind of the day to day. And I think during COVID, it's kind of adapted where we still do have press days. I've had press days with artists that live in other countries, and we just do them all on Zoom, and it looks a lot like this. And you just like connect interviewers in like one at a time, basically junket style. So we've definitely had to get creative with how we do things. But at the beginning, it was really tricky to kind of figure out that balance, since, you know, I think the industry also is tricky because you're on all the time, you're always working, and being at home makes it even harder because there's no like, oh, I'm going to work and then I'm coming home. You're kind of just like, oh, I'm just going to open my laptop the second I wake up and start working, and you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, the job is essentially the same. It's just we've had to change how we approach it, and how we promote artists, and how we look at how people are consuming music too.
Yeah, for sure. And then what would you say is like the most enjoyable part of your job? This can be pre or post pandemic. Doesn't matter.
I think as a music fan and as someone who's always wanted to work in the industry, PR specifically is a position that has a ton of access to the artists themselves, and there's like a level of trust there, and you're with them for some of the most vulnerable moments, or a lot of their firsts, or a lot of their nervous moments of their first TV performance, and stuff like that. So like, I think from like the interpersonal side of it, there's that payoff feels really like tangible, where you're like, oh, I see how this is making a difference in an artist's life, and that makes me feel like fulfilled. So yeah, I think it's like one of the most in the mix departments where you get to see the fruits of your labor the most in like a really tangible way.
For sure. And then what is like the toughest part of your job?
There's a lot. Music industry stuff in general, but I think for PR, a lot of rejection, a lot of no's, a lot of people ignoring you, and you know, ignoring you on your baby band, but they'll respond to you the second you email them about one of your bigger bands. And I think it's challenging to not put all of the weight on yourself and thinking like, oh, I'm failing because no one's getting back to me. It's like, no, I'm doing a good job because I'm putting this on everybody's radars. It's just the time's not right yet, you know? I always say you can work like the world's biggest band and service a press release, and everyone will get back to you, or everyone will write about it, and you feel like you've done an amazing job when you really didn't even have to do that much work necessarily. And then you could be working a baby band and like grinding and grinding and grinding for them. And, you know, you eventually get one blog to write about it in a month, and you're like, oh, this is such a bad campaign, I totally failed. And it's not, like, you really have to like figure out that balance, which is hard to do because human beings in general, we take rejection hard. You know, we don't want to hear no, so it's tricky. But
yeah, for sure. And then what like advice do you have for like people that want to pursue a similar like role in the music industry?
I think the way I was saying that, like, I used to kind of watch campaigns from the sidelines, just like from my computer as a person who consumes music. Pay attention to what artists that you like are doing, and kind of try to piece it together yourself as much as you can, just so that you kind of have the groundwork laid of like how campaigns work, when you go into like an entry level position or when you go into interview with someone. I think also if you are in an opportunity where you're around people who have been in the industry for years, learn from them as much as you can and seek a mentor. I think mentorship is so important in probably every industry, but especially the music industry. And I've had some really incredible mentors that I, would not be doing this job today if I didn't have them. So I think if you're in a position where you have access to these people, they are like the most valuable resource to you. Do your best to prove yourself to them so that you can earn their trust and show them that, you have the work ethic and you can handle the responsibility so that they kind of take you under their wing and teach you, because I think mentorship is like a huge important part.
Yeah, for sure. And then like, I know you had a very music industry focused degree, but for students, like we don't have anything available to that, like available of that realm for us here. Do you have any like major or minor, like, and I know most of the majors and minors here, so if you're curious if we have it, I can always share. Or then like with that as well, class recommendations, like are there any classes that you wish you would have learned more about before like pursuing anything music industry related?
Well, to be honest, most people that I know in the industry don't have a specific like music industry degree. That's kind of a niche thing. I know most schools don't have that. So I think anything where you have like transferable skills is just as helpful. I mean, my courses were really helpful, but I think more than anything, I've learned from my internships and just from experience on the ground. So in terms of majors and minors, not to say that it's not important, but just anything that is, I think, if you have an idea of what you want to do within the industry, any major or minor that kind of gives you more information about that particular field, that's totally helpful. And then I think to break into the industry is when you look into like internships or anything on campus that you can be doing that kind of gives you that experience, because before you start in the industry, that's what builds your resume, right? You can be doing college radio station, or if there's a music industry club or booking shows or anything like that. Throw yourself into as many things that are at least adjacent to what you want to be doing, even if it's not specifically music industry.
Yeah. And then is there any advice you have, like obviously being a woman in most industries is still sometimes a little bit challenging, so advice for young women that are like considering this kind of male dominated field, like any advice there?
That's a really good question. And I'm stoked to see that everyone on this call is a girl, because the music industry, especially I think the older generation and a lot of people who are in like executive roles nowadays because they've, been in the game for decades, it's still very much a boys club, and I feel it all the time. And there's so many downsides to that, but I think it gives you it gives me motivation, at least. A woman in any industry maybe feels like they have to prove themselves more than a guy in the industry. And I think that when I think about my mentors who have all been women, they have told me not to, get intimidated by men in the industry. They can sometimes be louder, but they're not necessarily right, just because they're, flexing their power or trying to make you feel less than. It's not real. It's just noise. So I think know your worth. If you're starting out in this industry and it's because you love music, just because you don't know some band that some 40-year-old guy in an executive room is going to ask you about, like, that doesn't mean you don't know music. You totally know what you're doing. And yeah, I think this does go for a lot of industries, not just music, but this is definitely one where it is male dominated, and you will get frustrated and you will find out that there's a guy who's 3 years younger than you who's making more money than you in, the same kind of role. But I think it's changing for the better, for sure. And I personally am lucky to work at a company where we have many female executives who are all about female empowerment. And this is, again, where it comes to where mentors come into play, of making sure that you're interacting with these people so that they know what work you're doing, that they will vouch for you. And I hopefully by the time hopefully in 10 years from now, it'll look a lot different. I think it's already starting to look different from just 5 years ago when I started. So, yeah, that's kind of a lot. I don't know if I really answered the question.
No, you're good. It's all good. And then have you like gotten to travel at all for your role, or like is there anything like really cool or enjoyable you've gotten to do like through this job?
Yeah, so when I was the coordinator in the New York office, when I first started at Capitol, I was doing tour press for pretty much every artist on the label. And that meant I was also working every festival that we had anyone playing. So I've gotten to go to Lollapalooza, I would get to go to Govball, I came to Coachella. So I think traveling has been mostly like domestic, but I've gotten to go to like Chicago and like LA before I lived here. And I do quite a few trips to New York now that I live in LA also, because all of our press partners are pretty much all the magazines, a lot of the late nights, stuff like that. So, but there's definitely opportunities to travel in general if you're interested in the music industry. There's labels have international marketing departments and they travel all the time. And I wish I had gotten into international marketing because they get to fly all around the world all the time because they basically handle any territory that's like ex-US. So there's totally opportunities to travel, which is one of my favorite parts, honestly.
Yeah. And then like because I know like since you did get exposed to a lot of different facets of the music industry like through your major, were there other areas that you were interested in, or like when you graduated, did you have a specific area? Like I know you mentioned that like through your internship, that's kind of how you started PR, but like before that, what was your like some of your bigger focuses?
Honestly, before I was in PR, I think I was most interested in A&R, which is the department that looks for artists to sign, pairs artists with different studios and producers, and kind of is really involved with like the album making process, which is super, super interesting to me. Now that I'm 6 years into my career, I feel like I would have a lot of learning to do if I were to try to start over. But I also want to encourage everyone, if you're like not liking what you're doing, it's not abnormal to switch gears. I've seen peers in the industry do it all the time. And it doesn't mean you're a failure, and it's a good thing to do because it's better to do that than to like continue down a path you're not loving. But I think I was really interested in A&R and also international marketing, like I said, because they kind of handle PR too. And the job is really similar, but I would definitely like to travel more.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure. And then let's see. If anyone else has any questions as I'm going as well, feel free to unmute yourself. It's okay. There's a small enough crowd of us. Like you can just unmute yourself. It's all good. So if anyone wants to do that now, you can go ahead.
Don't be shy. I also told Emily, you guys can feel free to add me on LinkedIn or email me if you have any questions after this.
I kind of have a question. I mean, obviously, like you're representing an artist or a band. Like, how do you manage the weight of responsibility that comes with doing that?
It's a ton of responsibility, and it's good that you acknowledge that because I've seen people who start out in PR and they don't realize kind of the power that they're holding when it's someone's public image literally that you're handling on the daily. But I think being extremely detail oriented is really important. Checking things a million times. It's hard because the music industry moves so fast. So you want to kind of just be like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do this and do this. Acknowledging when, oh no, this is super important. I need to double check this with management, or if being aware of cultural issues, there's a ton of responsibility that goes along with it. For me, I don't like talking about myself. To me, it's easier to kind of take care of someone else. I feel like I slip up less when it's someone else's image on the line. So it kind of comes with experience as well. Trusting your gut, knowing when, oh, something doesn't feel right about this, or especially if like, a writer's reaching out to you and you get a weird tone from their question, you're like, I see them potentially running something strange if we do this, knowing when to say no. It comes with experience, but luckily a good thing about the industry is you start as a coordinator so that you learn from the people above you, and luckily you get to see a lot of these things take shape before you're actually the one at the driver's seat. So it kind of equips you with more knowledge to take care of it when it comes time for it to be your own. And coordinators and assistants are completely the backbone of the entire industry. They take care of everything, and I don't think they get enough credit, by the way.
So
Thank you.
yeah, like with that, so just for some clarification, the coordinators and assistants at the label in the PR department are like below. What does that layout typically look like?
So every company's different, but usually it's like assistant is strictly admin, and then coordinator is admin with some of their own responsibilities. They may have some of their own projects. Again, label to label, it may be different. When I was a coordinator, I did all the tour press, and I also had like a small roster of my own projects where, you know, they were baby bands or they were developing artists, and they were kind of like a good fit for my experience level. And then beyond that, it kind of just becomes everyone's a publicist. You just have a different title, you know what I mean? So it's like manager, director, VP kind of thing. So the coordinators and the assistants are the ones who report to other people, and I think that means other people rely on them a lot. You know, they end up doing a brunt of the work.
Yeah. If anyone else wants to unmute themselves, go ahead. I have some more questions too, but feel free.
Hi, I had a quick question. Thank you so much for speaking here. Sorry I was a little late. But I just had a quick question about what are your thoughts on like, I guess just maintaining like a level of like, I don't know, just like being genuine with artists. Do you have any tips on like how to reach out to artists and like sound genuine without like just being, because I know I feel like there's a lot of people in the industry that just sound like they want to like manage someone and take advantage of them. I've seen a lot of artists or talked to a lot of artists saying that they felt like they might have, if they would have engaged in like, I don't know, having that person manage them, they would feel taken advantage of. So how do you communicate to artists like, and like make sure that you sound genuine to them?
That's a good question. I think for PR specifically, there's so much trust that has to be between the artist and their publicist, because we are like basically managing their public image. And I'm at a label where artists sign to the label and then they're working with us. So it's not like I'm going out to artists like trying to convince them to work with me. However, I think for your question, think about people in the industry who have ulterior motives, who aren't in it for the art. And this happens a lot at labels. I'm lucky to work at a label where I feel like, you know, artists' creative vision comes first all the time. I haven't seen many instances of artists being like, oh, they're using me for money, or they're trying to get me to change what I'm doing to fit a certain thing. I think communication is key. And if you're critiquing something, or if you're telling them, trying to steer them in a certain direction, stressing that it's, you know, for their own good, and not trying to push them too far outside of like their, you know, their image. Because a great piece of advice someone gave me was never to refer to music as product, which is interesting because at labels there's a position called the product manager, which is basically who runs marketing. And so it's just a normal thing. But I think if you think of music as like someone's hopes and dreams, like artists are people with hopes and dreams, and it's a privilege to be working with them and to like helping them achieve these things. I think if you have that mindset, you won't be treating them like product. And I think that will kind of just garner the trust and you know, show how genuine you are.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope that helped. I feel like I'm rambling. I don't know.
No, it's all good. You're doing great. I guess another question I have is like, right now internships are very, very few and far between, and I feel like even before this they probably were pretty few and far between. So if like, what advice do you have for like people that are like in our undergraduate years, like trying to break into this but not really sure like how to even start? Any advice there?
Yeah, I applied to dozens and dozens of internships, and I only heard back from Epic. So I think go as far and wide as you can. And it's cliche, but the music industry is very mixy and it's very networky, which I know is really hard for you guys to do right now because you can't really do anything in person. But I personally will always take a call with someone if they reach out to me on LinkedIn. I know a lot of my peers do the same. So try to network that way as much as you can. That way, when there is a position that's open, like Capital, for example, has an incredible internship program, which we didn't do this year because of, you know, how horrible everything is. But I would totally vouch for Emily, for example, because we've now had a few calls. But no, honestly, I think you can like form these relationships with people by reaching out. And you can't just like cold email someone and ask them to put you up for something. You have to kind of prove that you are responsible and you're hardworking and you're serious about what it is. So it kind of takes time to nurture those relationships, but it's totally possible to build them still, even though we're all virtual. And when we can be doing things in person, take informational meetings with people as much as you can. Do as much research as you can, so that if you do get a call back from, you know, a label or an internship elsewhere, you're equipped with as much information as you possibly can, because you really only have, you know, 15 minutes to prove to them why you deserve an internship over someone else. So
yeah. Another thing I'm just curious about is if you have had any, like, I don't want to say starstruck, but like, have you had any experiences working in this industry that you've just been like, wow, like, I don't know. Obviously, like, all of us probably love music, and I know that there are a couple people on my list that if I ever had to interact with them in a professional setting, it would be like, oh my gosh, like, so just curious about that.
it's funny because I feel like in the beginning I was expecting myself to feel really starstruck, but once you're in it, you're so focused on the job at hand that you're kind of like, you're so in it that you're kind of just like, oh. And also, like, working with artists, you see them in such a human light. Like, it's a completely different light than you see them on TV. I don't feel jaded. I still feel really excited about things. But when it comes to artists I'm working with, I don't really feel starstruck. I do sometimes have moments afterwards where I go home and I'm like, if I could tell myself at 16 that I just did what I did, like, I would be so stoked about it. But I feel like you get so wrapped up in like the work of it. But I like, I had a group play Madison Square Garden, and I was backstage at MSG, and we took a group photo on the stage, and I was like, this is the coolest thing in the entire world. I'm like on stage at Madison Square Garden. Like, I was like outwardly freaking out about it. Everyone was like, Christina, please relax. I'm like, no, this is cool. And I'm excited.
No, of course, because I mean, like, again, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel pretty confidently that most people on this call, like, do enjoy, like, those concert experiences and do, like, really, really love music. Otherwise, why would you choose to, like, pursue this?
Totally.
Yeah, just, that sounds fun. Super interesting. Again, if anyone ever wants to unmute themselves, even if I'm talking, feel free to interrupt me. No big deal. So,
You can just cut her right off.
yeah, it's fine. If not, I have some more questions too. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm just like super curious. Like, do you have like any perspective on like live performances? And like, there's like some talk. I've seen like artists post like, hope to see you in 2021. And I'm not really sure. Are there plans going on right now? Are there tours being scheduled already? Do you have a perspective on that?
To be honest, I have no idea. I know there were plans to reschedule a lot of things that were canceled this year for 2021. I personally think everyone jumped the gun a little bit for announcing things for 2021. It was a little optimistic, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. To my knowledge, so far, I don't think like into the summer anything will be happening. But I mean, it depends on how quickly we can get things under control. It's really frustrating to look at other countries who have things under control and what they're able to do already. But that's a separate conversation.
Yeah. And then also just a follow-up question, do you have any advice like for getting involved right now without going to live events in person? Are there any like remote things that you can think of, like other ways that you can connect with artists or like groups or anything like that?
Connecting with artists right now is really hard. I think there are a ton of like live stream shows that people are doing from their backyard or their living room. And if you're looking for like, you know, to feel like you're at a concert, you might not get the exact same like warm fuzzy feeling from that. But if you're just looking to like kind of get information on how people are being creative like during this time that they can't be doing shows, I think it's been really inspiring to me to see what artists are thinking of that are totally outside box. But otherwise, in terms of like connecting with like artists and teams and stuff, like I said, emailing people on LinkedIn, like messaging people, just seeing if anyone will take a 15-minute chat with you. You know, it feels like you're bugging people, and some people won't get back to you, but whatever, do it anyway. You have to just shoot your shot.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I feel like that's the best attitude to have.
Yeah, totally. I mean, again, this industry is so much rejection in general, and it's really hard to break in. Again, I had an extremely lucky shot. I have friends who studied music industry who it took a lot longer, or they're still trying. And I think perseverance is key, because there's so much rejection. It's just a tiny industry. There's only so many labels. There's only so many management companies. Like, you have to just wait and you know, timing is everything, and keep your eye on all the opportunities that you're interested in, and then, you know, strike when the time's right. So.
Another question I have is just about like interviewing and stuff. And like, if you have any elevator pitch advice, because I know as someone who is studying public relations, they really be pushing that elevator pitch, which I don't know how much you've even had to use that throughout your life, but
Not really, to be honest.
well, that's good. I mean, that also is just a bit of a relief, but I guess with that, something that I always am curious about during an interview is like, do you have any really good like questions when they're like, do you have any questions at the end of like the interview? And I feel like you're always supposed to have some, but if you have any good like concrete music industry ones, that would be very much appreciated.
That's a really good question. I think there's no like one size fits all question that you should ask, but always do like extensive research. That's like obviously a no-brainer. Something that I think people really like to be asked, and that I have asked on interviews that they're always like delighted when I ask it, is what are you excited about that you're working on, or what excites you about working at the place, or, you know, because then it gives them kind of an opportunity to reflect, like it kind of appeals to their emotional side, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, well, I really like this about my job, and, you know, and also it's a good way to hear about like things they have coming down the pipeline that you may or may not be working on. If you're, you know, interviewing for like a marketing coordinator position, for example, like, what are you excited about next year? It kind of gives you a scope on like what's coming up. And yeah, I think that's probably the one that I used the most.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Feel free to unmute yourselves at any points in time. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I might say it another time, but feel free to unmute yourself. I guess on our RSVP form, we had a question about okay. Oh, like, I guess, like, as the music industry rebuilds, hopefully after this pandemic, like, do you think things are going to be, like, different for a very long time after this? This is very much just a speculation question, like, because obviously the industry is, like, very much hurting, and, like, I know all of us, like, who just love live music, like, and hopefully want to work in the music industry someday, like, it's scary to attempt to enter a workforce that's like, that looks like this, and obviously like my heart goes out to everyone that's in it right now, but just any advice, speculations about that?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's been hard for like certain areas of the industry, specifically like touring, so like agents, touring crews, people who work at festivals, stuff like that. And that's also made it way harder for developing artists, especially certain genres just like that thrive on the road, like, and, you know, opening for someone on a tour like literally will make or break them. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely challenging. I think that will, you know, time will tell, vaccine will tell, but I think there's also been some positives that have come out of this, like how creative everyone has gotten in terms of like producing content on their own. And I think the industry has kind of slowed down a little bit in terms of like, I never took work from home days before. And now I think our entire company will be really flexible about it because we've all proven that we get the work done, you know, either way. So I think there will be like some positive change that comes out of this. I think it will take time to get back to like where we were, or hopefully even better. But yeah, the hardest part for me is like not having live music, because again, music fan, if I haven't said it yet, I'm a big fan of music. And that's kind of like another rewarding part of working in the industry is like, oh, I get to go to shows with my friends all the time. And like, it makes us all feel excited. And it's this like sense of teamwork and camaraderie. And we all work this project, and here we are seeing it like live in the flesh. And it makes it feel like exciting. And I've worked so many album releases over the past 9 months that are just like, all right, album's out, and now, you know, there's no tour, there's no show, there's no team dinner, like, you know, it's just kind of depressing. But I think it's been hard on everyone, but I think it will get better. I hope that by the time you guys graduate, is anyone a senior? I'm so sorry, Carly. And Emma too? So sorry. I feel so bad for people who it's their senior year, because it's such a like like bad note to end on, but I hope that your college years have been really fun up until now. But I think the industry in general, I think that like once things are back up and running, everyone's going to be super eager to like hit the ground running. You know, I think everyone's going to be really excited to get back to normal, and I think that that's going to make it go quicker. So
Yeah, I mean, we can all just cross our fingers and hope for the best. I'm trying to think. I guess another question, just as a fun music lover question, what has been like the best concert experience you've had? Like, where was it? What was the lineup? Who was there? Yeah, I know it's tough, but
hard question. First thing that came to mind though was there's a festival called Guff Ball in New York, and it's like on an island. You have to take a ferry to get there, and it's like my favorite festival. And there was this one year that the headliners were, I had like a million bands playing too. So I was working kind of all day, which was fun because it's like fun. I'm like running around. I'm like, oh, I'm so busy, but I'm like, you know, living my best life. So I'm like, oh, I'm backstage at a festival, like so excited. And the headliners were the Killers one night and the Strokes another night. And it was supposed to be Kanye West the third night, but it got rained out, which was crazy. But that was like the best festival ever. The night that we saw the Killers, they were like an hour late because it was pouring, and they were just like trying to sort out the stage, and we had to wait until it stopped pouring. So we were all soaking wet. We were all like waiting for them, and then they started with Mr. Brightside, and it was like the most fun I think anyone in the entire world has ever had. We were just like so stoked and like soaking wet. I felt like I was at Glastonbury or something. It was amazing.
yeah, for sure.
Am I allowed to ask you? Can anyone else tell me their favorite concert moment, please?
I'm gonna think for a second. So if anyone else wants to unmute themselves to go first, go ahead.
You don't have to if you feel shy, but I would like to hear it.
Okay, I think I'm there, so I can go. So my best friend from home and I, like when concerts were a thing, and I'm very hopeful that they are again soon, her and I would go to easily like 10 to 15 shows a year, just all over the place. Our moms would have to drive us to wherever. Yeah. We have very good parents, very, very lucky there. But there was this one, like, it was a radio show, like, you know how they do, like, the jingle balls, like, yeah. And so, like, 15-year-old me was totally there for that, and I remember seeing the night before the show, there was, like, it was sponsored by Pepsi, and they were doing, like, a contest, like, whoever showed up looking the most Pepsi spirit, if they found you outside of the arena, they would give you front row seats and other prizes. So me, I, of course, went to Michael's and bought a ton of fabric and made us these, like, I'm not, like, a costume person either. Like, I used, like, super glue or something. Yeah. I made us, like, these Pepsi can costumes, and we show up, and my friend did not want to be a part of any of this because we looked so obnoxious. Like, we looked like Pepsi cans. We, like, had made these, like, tin, like, pop tab hats, and it was freezing cold. It was the middle of December. We were waiting outside the arena. I was, like, thinking I was, like, hoping someone would see us, and, like, like, oh, me? Like, and no one saw us, so we get into the, like, arena, and we're, like, walking around, and my friend is like, can we please take these off now? Like, I don't want to be in this anymore. Like, I was the worst, but I was like, no, we're staying in it just in case they're in here. And so we were just like walking around the hallways and like trying to find our seats. And I stopped because I had to like take off my winter coat and like take my gloves off, and like I had my ticket in my hand, and we had poster boards. So it was just like a whole thing. I was trying to adjust, and this woman wearing a fur vest comes walking down this random like service hallway, and she looks at us and she's like, oh my gosh, can I take a picture of you? And I was like, sure. Like, people were doing this outside the arena as well because we just looked funny. So I was like, yeah, woman, whatever, like, go ahead. And she like was like typing on her phone, and she's like, so I'm not the person that like decides this, but I'm gonna get you to the people that do. So she took us to this random like office. Like, I was like texting my mom, and I'm like, this woman is taking us, and she's like,
I'm being kidnapped, sorry.
Yeah, I was like, but it's okay, she looks official. And at this point, like a crowd was gathering because they saw that there were some people and there were a lot of people trying to win this. And yeah, I guess she got us to the right people. So we won front row seats at this arena like radio show. And then we also like won meet and greets to meet DNCE. So like Joe Jonas. And that was just like, I've definitely gone to better, like I've seen artists after that have like meant more to me, but that was definitely the experience was like, oh my gosh, like I want to work in music forever. Like that really solidified that for me because like, it was like, oh my gosh, like this can like change people's lives. Like I was just like a little 15-year-old girl and like that event meant so much to me. And I feel like that's so much of the music industry is like getting to make like those changes in people's lives because music like is everything. And so yeah, that was probably, sorry, it was super long-winded, but I
love the message of that too though, is because you're like, I'm just a kid and this is like the best day of my life and I'm never gonna forget it. And like I always try to remember that too, especially when I'm working projects that have like younger fan bases, or like we have Troye Sivan, who's like an angel on earth, the best person in the entire world. And he always, whenever he's doing things at the tower, there's always fans outside. And I always go like bring them signed CDs or something. Just cause I'm like, if I used to be the kid who would like find out my favorite band was somewhere and I would just go stand outside of it all day until they like came out. You know what I mean? So, and like, I know that they'll remember that. They'll be like, oh, someone nice at our record label like gave me a signed CD.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like the little things that you can do. Like it didn't probably cost them that much to add us 2 little girls to the like meet and greet list, but it was like total like, oh my gosh, we had like Pepsi colored lipstick on. Like I had Pepsi lipstick on when I met Joe Jonas. So like, I don't know what else.
You have a picture of Joe Jonas where you're like dressed as a Pepsi can?
I took the costume off. So I was in my normal clothes, but I did still look just like a little disheveled because it was like 10 degrees outside, snowing in Chicago. So it was just like, it's really something. But yeah, that was definitely an experience I will never forget. 10th of December, 2016. So yeah.
That's so cute.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Favorite concert? It can be lame.
I'll go really quick. Just because when I think, I always have a good answer to this one. Not as good as the Pepsi, I'm not going to lie. But so I'm from the Twin Cities and I've always been like super into the local music scene here. And when I was like 15 or 16, there was this group called The Standard, which was like a rap group. And it consisted of this dude named Corbin and then like Bobby Rap, Simon, and Alan Kingdom. And they're not really a thing anymore. But it was like the first concert I'd ever went to with just my friends, and it was so exciting. And honestly, it was very much a similar experience. I remember like it was at the Varsity, which is right in Dinkytown actually, and I was like standing on the side like looking around and I was like, this is what I want to do. Like I was like watching the lights and watching them like do their thing, and I was like, I don't know how, I don't know what, but I want to like be here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's my short but sweet story.
Because mine, I grew up like loving small bands too. Like my first concert was a band called the Rocket Summer, and they were opening for the Early November, which is an emo band. Anyway, it was at like a small venue in New York, and I was like, I was totally starstruck, and I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I was like, I don't know, 500 cap room, and I was like, this is the most exciting thing in the world. So I completely get it.
Yeah, exactly.
So cute. I love it. Anybody else want to share? Story time.
It is
I'll share mine.
Yes.
Okay, so mine, I don't know if it's like the best one I've ever been to, but the most interesting one. I studied abroad in South Korea a couple years ago, and the college that I was at, they were hosting this huge like music festival that they do every single year called Akaraka. And it's just like a bunch of different musical acts that all come together and everything. And I just happened to win the tickets. Like you just entered your name and it was totally anonymous, the whole big thing. And I won these tickets. And I just like remember I waited in line for hours and hours and hours in like the heat. It was super hot, like 90 degrees outside. And I got to be front row. And it was such a cool experience because like obviously I don't speak Korean, but like being in this humongous arena with all these people who are like, some are Korean, some are international, you know, all these different people from all these different backgrounds. all like screaming, like they taught us chants, and like I don't speak Korean, but like I'm here chanting, like this whole. And it was so cool how like none of us spoke the same language, but like we were able to interact and like just be brought to.
Chills! I just got chills. I love that.
It was just so cool. Like I couldn't get over it, and like that's kind of what brought me into it. Like I wanted to be in the music industry before I went there, but then when I got there, I was like, it's just amazing how I can be surrounded by this music industry that I don't understand, but like I'm still so invested in it, and like I'm attached to it. It's just really cool.
What do you listen to Korean music? Do you listen to like K-pop?
I do. Actually, like when I saw that you were from Capitol Records, I was like, NCT, like Super M, here we go. I'm so excited.
They're the best. I love that. I was gonna ask, at the festival, is it like K-pop? Like, did those kinds of groups play at that festival? Or was
it was both. Yeah, it was like K-indie bands and like Korean pop groups and different things like that.
Oh, cool. I'm a huge K-pop fan, and I've like started to kind of go down the road of like K-indie stuff. And it's so good. I don't know why
good.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think to listen to that. I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is so good. So if you have any recommendations, please let me know.
Oh, so many. Do you listen to Dean?
Yeah, I love Dean.
Yeah, pretty much like him. So like his label, I think, is actually from Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Red Bull artist, but pretty much everyone on the roster from his company are so good.
Okay, I'll check it out. Do you know? I think I don't know how to say it. My pronunciation is probably not great, but Yerin Beck.
Yeah,
she's so cool.
Yeah,
that's what got me into this recently. Sorry, guys.
No, good.
Sam, let's hear yours.
Okay, so I'm actually just like, I had like one specific event that like kind of got me into the music industry, and I was following an artist since I was like 14. His name's Eden. He's from Europe.
He's on Capitol. Well, he's on Astroworks.
Yeah, he is. Electra, I think he was also maybe Electra Music Group at some point, but yeah, he has his own distribution. Completely obsessed with him since I was like 15. And I found out that I went to one of his smaller shows at 7th Street Entry when he came for like the end credits tour. And then I found out that he was going to be in Minneapolis on my 18th birthday. And like, he was like one of the only artists I listened to at the time. I remember like talking to all my friends, and like we were planning on going. And then my mom told me that she bought all of us VIP tickets to go and meet him on my birthday.
Mom.
And we all went to the venue, and I just remember like going up to him and like seeing him in person. And I remember I couldn't speak. Like I actually like tried to say something like thank you, but I couldn't speak. And then I remember later in the night, like all my friends were like together. We were like singing the songs or whatever. And I feel like he's kind of an artist where like everyone knows like the lyrics like at the shows. But I remember that someone like looked at me that I didn't know that I was standing next to, and they like whispered, they're like, this guy knows every single lyric. And it was just like the coolest thing ever. And I noticed that in 2020, he was planning on like building an entire set from scratch. And like he had like all these like behind the scenes photos on his Instagram of just people building it. And I was like, what stops me from like just like going to the place and just like using a hammer and just helping him? Like that's like the biggest thing. Like I don't really even care about like anything else. I just want to be a part of like something bigger. So
yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
I've always said that I would rather do like admin, like BS work for like projects I'm really passionate about than do PR for like a car company. Like I'd rather like stuff envelopes for my favorite band than like do PR for like a bank, you know? So I completely get that. I totally agree.
I'll share mine since everyone shared. There's a few, but I guess like kind of relating to Emily's story, when I was like 13, I was a huge One Direction girl. When I was younger. Yeah, like the biggest. What'd you say?
I was 20, but
yeah, doesn't matter, I still am. And my friend's mom worked for a radio station, and they were in town playing at the Xcel Energy Center, and we had like not great seats. We were pretty high up in the nosebleeds, and some woman came with her daughter and was like, you're in our seats. And we were like, no, we're not. Like, we got these are real tickets. And then she threw like a fit. We had to go to customer service, and like we missed 5 Seconds of Summer, who I loved at the time too. And my friend's mom was just like, called her, and she was like, you know what, like, we're not dealing with this, like go stand in the lobby and like someone will come get you. And this man, like massive, like 6'4" man.
Did Harry?
I literally wish. But this massive dude in a suit and like the earpiece came in. He was like, "Are you Mara and Carly?" And we were like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Follow me." And he led us down the whole floor, and all these girls were like, who are these girls? Yeah. And then we got placed like in the front row, like right on the side of the arena, like in the corner, and it was like a completely reserved section, so it was like there's no one there. Yeah. And we were just like literally like 8 feet from like Harry Styles, and I was like literally the whole time I was like, so yeah, that was just an amazing, like cool. That was like probably the first time I was like, oh, like completely starstruck. And I was like, that would be so amazing to just like work in that and like do that kind of stuff and like give little girls that opportunity. Like even when I would go to like Taylor Swift when I was a young girl, like we were always like, oh my God, like let's be in the tea party and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you guys know what that is. But yeah, no, it's just,
is that her street team?
Huh?
Is that her street team?
Her street team?
Is that what it, I didn't know if that was.
No, it was like you like dressed up as major Taylor fans, and her mom would like come pick you out and you would go have a tea party with her. And we were like all want to do that when we were little, and it's just so cute to like, I think it's the coolest thing ever. So I love it.
I love that. Do you see how we all have this like super deep emotional connection to music though? I think that's so important. I think you have to have that, or else it's like kind of not worth it, because there's so much BS that comes along with working in the music industry. But for me personally, it's completely worth the payoff. Like I every day am thankful that I work in this industry, and like every exciting moment that I have completely outdoes. It's almost like I completely forget all of the bad. You know how like after you have a baby, they say you forget how bad it hurts so that you have a baby again? I think that's what happens to me with like the music industry. I'm like, oh no, it was actually not that bad. Everything's actually wonderful because I'm, backstage at Madison Square Garden. But yeah, I love it. This was the best.
Yeah. Very precious. It's like, it's so refreshing too, because it's like, it's very hard to find these little communities of people that are so passionate about it, like, and passionate enough about it there that they like want to do it, because I haven't found a lot of people here at the U that like also share those. So
yeah,
very cool stuff.
Now you have.
If anyone has any like last little questions, like now's the time. Take it away.
Hit me. Again, add me on LinkedIn. You guys can email me, send me playlists, especially you, Emma. Whatever, seriously. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. I know it must be so hard for you all right now. I can't imagine what you're going through. This is already such a weird transitional time of life, coupled with like the existential dread of and literal global pandemic. So you're dealing with a lot, and I'm proud of you guys.
Thank you.
I do have like one final question. I don't know how well you're going to be able to answer this because you're like a PR person. But I'm actually going to the U for journalism, and like music journalism was kind of the goal, but also like PR, who knows? It's up in the air,
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, are journalism and PR like closely related? Like, could a journalism degree get me into PR if I wanted to?
I think so. I think, first of all, I work with journalists all day, every day. And I think journalists, like, at times hate publicists because they probably think we're pushy and annoying. And I know that that's, like, a stereotype, and I try my hardest to, like, give publicists a better rep. But I think if you have the writing skills to be a journalist, great. And I think that those skills also transfer to PR totally. But, yeah, I completely think so. And I think having knowledge of outlets and blogs, or even having a network there, if you are able to freelance or like write for some of these blogs, that'll totally help you as a publicist, because especially when you're a coordinator or when you're like working on if you're a junior publicist on something and you're working on like online PR or something, like having a network with those blogs or like those like music websites, that's totally helpful for you. So yeah, they're totally intertwined.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
There's like one program that you work with like every other day, or like some like form of like digital literacy, what would you suggest? Like learning a program or something?
That's hard. That's hard for PR specifically because I think ours are so PR centered. Like we use a website called Cision, which is like a giant database. And also there's like different ones that different companies use. Like personally, I use Constant Contact to send out press releases. MailChimp is also like very popular. If you can try to get like proficiency in those, if there's like beta, like free testing or whatever, practice like making newsletters, things like that. Those are really helpful because in entry-level positions, a lot of times if you're like the coordinator of a department, a lot of times you'll be responsible for like the department's monthly newsletter or weekly newsletter or something like that. So I don't think there's one specifically. There may be for like other departments, but for PR, and also just like the classic Microsoft Office, Excel, which I know all college students know how to do, but yeah, I don't know that there's anything super specific for PR, but in general, also if you are able to have like any kind of, I don't really have much like graphic design or like Photoshop experience or anything, but a lot of times people above you will like, make this pretty. They'll like ask you to like make something pretty. So just like anything that you can like make, you know, kind of on the creative side, Photoshop, you know, stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you.
It was maybe not the most useful answer, but.
Cool. Well, if anyone has any more questions, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Speak now or DM me later.
Yeah, I guess you can just hold your peace. Like,
you can hold your peace. If you want.
It's not forever.
Yeah.
But if not, thank you all so much for joining. I know it was super enjoyable for me, and we will be hosting more of these next semester. And if any of you also, like off the top of your head, have a specific facet of the music industry that you really would like to learn more about, feel free to like unmute yourself and let me know. Otherwise, you can reach out to me at whole@umn.edu. So instead of like an X500, it just says whole, WH, because of the whole music club. So if you ever want to reach out to me or for any reason, that's how you can get a hold of me. But yeah, thank you all. And Christina, I don't know if you have any final parting words, but
this was like the most social thing I've done in 9 months, and so I really appreciate you guys for letting me talk. I feel like I rambled a lot. I don't know if this was helpful, but things like this were really helpful for me when I was a college student, just to kind of see like what paths are available for you and that it is possible. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Thank you guys. You were a ton of fun. This was not stressful at all. I'm happy it wasn't 400 people.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great night and a good time with finals. Please stay as sane as you possibly can. I know it's a tricky time, but yeah, thank you so much, Christina, for taking the time out of your busy life to talk to us. I know I really appreciate it. So yeah.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for reaching out, Emily, and for facilitating these. I hope you guys, I hope it's a meaningful, useful resource for you when there's few and far between right now. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Bye.